before. But when will we fall down? Great choice there. Great choice there, Mr. Camera Diner. The level of detail and professionalism that has gone into getting you guys together and in producing content that we think is valuable, useful, important, productive, effective for you has been immense. The amount of man hours and the amount of talent that's been brought to bear on bringing you together has just been intense, and it's immense. And having you here to participate in it and to benefit from it, it just means the world to us. Thank you guys so much for being here. Like a round of applause for everybody in here, in the room, online, just being available to spend time with us. It's tremendous. David, Todd, Steph, Chase Macri, Melissa Foss, Sabrina, all the people who have come in and done all the work to set up and prepare and everything, like the detail is just terrific. And what I love about all the detail is it helps us to focus on what matters, right? We're not busy picking on the slides. Well, you will mine. They're terrible. You're not busy picking on the slides. You're not busy picking on the signage or how silly something looks. We can focus on talking to one another, spending time with one another, asking questions about our business, and learning about what it is we need to do together to be successful. And I just love that. I couldn't appreciate you guys more. And Toad the Wet Sprocket certainly doesn't hurt. So thank you, David. November 8th, 2004 was my first date with my wife. I'm going to follow Bob's theme there for just a moment. I'm a person, and I think the way I think, and I don't often think I think the way other people think. So November 8th, 2004 was our first date. We went to dinner and we went to a concert. And the weeks before that, I went up to my wife, my now wife, and I said, hey, I'd really like to take you on a date, but I don't want to just go on a date because I don't really understand dating and how that's supposed to work and the dance we do. I said, so what I really want to do is I'm not going to ask you out on a date until you give me permission, and before you give me permission, let's go have coffee, and for an hour, we're going to just no holds barred ask each other questions, like family drama, dirt, prior relationships, weird personality quirks. We're going to dig in. And then was a 48-hour cooling off period, like you're buying a handgun. And then I'm going to call you, and I'm going to ask you out. And if you say yes, then we can do the whole dating thing with our cards on the table. And if you say no, there's no hard feelings, and we can stay friends. And I think this way we can avoid damage in our long-term relationship. And she stared at me like I was an exceptionally broken human being. She was right. We went and had coffee. And she asked me hard questions, and I asked her hard questions, and we laid our cards on the table. And I waited 2 days, and I called her, and I said, would you like to go on a date? She said, yeah, that's the weirdest thing anyone has ever done, but I'd love to go on a date. And we went on a date, and it was great, and we're married. We got good kids. The product, we're going to go into the product slides here. I'm going to share with you guys a little bit of the product roadmap, what we plan on doing in 2022 and what we've done in 2021. But if you hear nothing else, and it's not important that you hear anything else, if you hear nothing else, understand two things. This coming year is about deployment, and it's about discovery. That's it, right? And there's a lot in those two words. Deployment is our containerization strategy. Deployment is our caching strategy. Deployment is the way that you manage your project assets, the way that you look and understand the differences between assets that are moving between environments, the way that you understand how assets are being used in different environments. Deployment covers all of that. And discovery is about understanding what you need to automate, understanding who needs to be involved in the automations, and discovery is about understanding what's going on in automations and optimizing and continually optimizing and making better every day, every day, every day. So if you hear nothing else, this year is deployment and discovery. Do I just hit buttons here? We see decisions as a product providing a continuous cycle of optimization and of business improvement. It's about starting with analysis. Sometimes we do, often we don't. It's about automating. I think we do a lot of that. We love to do that. Bob got up here and he talked about automations and he talked about applications. That's the thing we do. We build workflows, we build rules. We love to do that. And we execute. Automate and execute has always been a core part of what we do. It's always been the strength of the product. Moving into this year, we want to do a lot better at the other two parts of this cycle, right? Analyzing and elevating, constantly improving. Not only the processes that you have, not only the business rules that you have, but the ones that you ought to have and the ones that you will have in the future. How we're going to do that? It's a little bit of the how, a little bit of the why. Our mission as a team, we say this two ways. When Carl and I started Decisions 10 years ago, and I see him in the back there. Hey, boss. Good to see you. When Carl and I started Decisions 11 years ago, we both came from, I'd worked for him for the 10 years prior. We wanted to make it possible for the people who know what needs to be done to do it. That's what's always been at the core of the mission for me, is how do you take the hospital administrator? How do you take the clinical trials expert, the nurse who's flipping through the files in Sean's world, right? And looking for the right person to pair to the right trial. How do you give them the ability to write the software and to configure the software without having to go and learn a language or learn a bunch of XML or write in a pseudocode scripting language? It's always been the mission, to give experts the chance to solve their problems the way they want to. How we do that is we deliver the most capable and accessible automation platform that gives you confidence. That's the product team mission. We start all our weekly meetings with that mission. We recapitulate that mission over and over again to try to keep our eye on the prize. The dev team, the engineering team, all of them, they're on a Zoom right now. Ben's holding up my phone, watching, letting those guys watch and be a part of this presentation so they can see you guys. They can see the customers. They can see what we're saying to our customers, and they can see how consistent it is with the message that we give them every day. There's been 7 releases of version 7 to date. Version 7 is our first .NET Core implementation, which is paving the way for us to be fully cloud native and totally containerized. It's paving the way. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. Version 7 does have a great container capability. Version 8 will be fully containerized. In version 7.7 this summer, we launched support for Postgres as Decisions backend. We've always had Postgres integration. You've always been able to talk to Postgres. Now you can use it as the backend for Decisions. Some of you might wonder why Postgres. It's easy, right? This next year is about deployment, and it's about discovery. And deploying into the cloud native hosting platform as a service environments, most of them have dynamic auto-scaling implementations of Postgres. For example, Amazon Aurora. And that's why we chose Postgres. The solutions team, you've heard from Sean Garcia, all about financial services and healthcare. Part of the industry solutions team works directly for Sean Garcia. They're thinking about products, they're bringing products to market, they're doing product marketing, they're understanding what products people need and how those work in our target markets. But part of the solutions team works with me. I get the pleasure of working with folks like Ben Weatherford and Elise and Morgan and Sonali and Matt Borney, and they're focused on building the products. They're the solution engineering team. Why does the solution engineering team work for the product team? It's because what we want to do with the product is have a pyramid, a progression, if you will, that is constantly feeding back in both directions. We'll never stop just plain making the product better. It's the thing we do. It's what most of the engineering team is focused on. You guys submit support tickets. You guys talk to your customer success reps. You say, we'd like to see this feature. We'd like to do this thing. We'd like to automate this thing. We want to integrate with this thing. Those become developer tasks. Our engineers do that work. That's improving our HL7 engine. That's improving our Fire engine. That's improving data encryption and audit. It's changing our formula builder. It's adding a new foreign exchange library. It's just making the baseline product better. Sitting on top of that, the solutions engineering team, they're going to build complete solutions. I like to say they come with a manual, so I put that little manual icon up there. A complete solution means it's built entirely on decisions. It's configurable in decisions. It's adjustable in decisions. You write flows, you write rules, you modify flows, you modify reports, you modify dashboards. It's the exact same tool, but out of the box it delivers value to you, and it delivers value to you immediately. It also has a manual, meaning the support team is trained on it, the professional services team is trained on it, the customer success team is trained on it. So if you're using the risk scorecard application as a part of your business, right, the first piece of the tomato framework that's going to be brought to market, if you're using the risk scorecard application, you don't have to explain what you're doing every time you call the support team. You just talk to them about the fact that you're using the risk scorecard application. The solution engineering team also are building market-focused products. which means the look and feel, the style, the expectation for how the forms work, the expectations for how certain dashboards are going to look, how they're going to feel, how they're going to work, the user experience, both in the design and in the delivery to the end user, is going to be driven hard by that team, which is going to make the product better. And so this team works really, really closely with the product team, not only to make the product better, but to make the products that they're bringing to market. And we see that as a long-term strategy for giving you guys the best possible product that we can. We tend to put the categories of capability that analyze, automate, execute, and elevate. We put the categories of the product into these 5 major buckets, right? There's discovery, what happens at the beginning. You know, this past year, we've improved our BPMN and DMN implementations, making it easier to take work done by consultants or work done in other tools and bring it into decisions to start your automation journey. We're adding and working on process discovery, taking a look at data in your environment and understanding exactly what processes should be automated, how those processes should be automated, who the actors are that are in play, how they should be assigned, what the deadlines should be, doing more process discovery, doing more data analysis on the front end to make sure that what you build is going to be effective for your organization. Design and debug, I think this is our strength. This is the core of what we've always done. When we talk about design and debug, we're talking about the flow designer, the rule engine, adding rule tables to the product. We're talking about the report designer, the dashboard capability, the integration capability in the product, the visual tester, the global debugger, the profiler. We're talking about all those tools that you use to build in decisions. Deploy and detect. Deploy and detect is where we're going to spend a lot of time this year. Making sure that the deployment repository is easier to use for collaboration. When you have multiple developers working, who's doing what? When are they doing it? How are they doing it? Who's assigned to what? How do you know who's supposed to be editing the rules, who's not supposed to be editing the rules? How do you know from a development environment, when you're in your development environment, what's going on in the production environment? Giving you better tools to deploy and detect everything that's happening in your world and in the automations and in the applications that you've built is what we're going to be doing over the course of the next year. Deployment and discovery. Version 7 came out at the beginning of this past year. We've released 7 versions of 7. I already mentioned version 7 is our first .NET Core implementation ever. There's a lot of features in version 7. If you haven't seen it, you haven't started to work with it, you have detailed questions about it. We have a room right down the hall. There's 4 stations set up. We've got 4 people in that room at all times, some from sales engineering and some from training, that will help you answer questions. If you have questions about 7, how something works, you want to see a demonstration of any of the features that we breeze through right now, please go down to that room and spend some time with those people. That's why they're here. And I'm sure I'll pop in there from time to time if I'm not stuck in the hallway talking to somebody. Our new charting library. The new charting library is an important step forward in decisions because it does 2 things. It improves the look and feel of the charts, but that's not what's really important. What's really important is the fact that the charts allow you to give a dashboard to an end user that they can change while they're looking at it. It allows for end user personalization. So somebody who's looking at data and trying to understand where all the assignments are held up or where all of the tasks currently are, or where all the loans, what state the loans are in, can look at the data and can make adjustments to the data on the fly. They can do that just to do some analysis as they're working, or they can do that and they can save that, and that can become their permanent view. So that user personalization is meant to be a massive step forward in the way that the dashboards and the reporting engine work, and that's in 7. We've added a new form UI concept called Simple Forms. Simple Forms are based on Google's Material UI concept, which means that the labels and the UI controls like drop-downs and text boxes, they're bound together. You no longer have to position each element exactly. You just position elements like you would kind of with a Google form in a kind of a vertical flow layout, and the form just works. It's more modern out of the box, it's more responsive out of the box, and it's easier to use because there's less detailed configuration that you'll do in the form. Over the course of the year, we've added more and more user interface controls to the simple form capability so that you can have all of the data controls that you've gotten used to in our original form builder. We're giving you more and more of those in the simple form design experience. In fact, with the release of 7.9, even our data repeater, which allows you to build a thing that repeats itself for every item, has been added to the simple form control concept. If you haven't seen simple forms, you should go next door and take a look at those. The mapping editor has been rewritten in React. Why do you care? You shouldn't, right? The mapping editor allows you to do data transformation from one data type to another. Hopefully lots of you use it. It's a great feature of the product. We rewrote it in React so it would be faster, so it would be more responsive, and so it would be more reliable. While we were rewriting it in React, we've added two important features here: the ability to search in the mapping editor and the ability to filter in the mapping editor. So those of you, like my friend Aaron Madsen from Aria Systems, who have very large data types, can quickly find the property you're looking for and get it mapped without necessarily having to scroll through a very complicated data type. Rule table is a new type of rule. The rule table looks a lot like a truth table, but you'll notice the conditions show up in every row, which means you're able to get a much more dense rule. It takes more clicks to configure, of course, because you're configuring your conditions in every single row instead of up at the top in the columns like you would a traditional truth table. But it is more flexible than a truth table. So this is another rule type that allows you the flexibility to decide what it is you want to do in a particular use case. Other capability changes that we have here: there's been significant updates to the HL7 module. There will continue to be. We added a concept in decisions called design patterns. If you're not familiar with design patterns, you should go to the version 7 room and ask them about design patterns. But if you've ever used flow sets or rule sets, design patterns work a lot like flow sets and rule sets, but they work on any folder, they work anywhere. Design patterns allow you to constrain the inputs and outputs of a flow or a rule or a set of flows or a set of rules so that it becomes easier to find them and execute them programmatically. Talked about the rule table. We've dramatically overhauled the integration system in decisions. If you look at the way flows and rules are called over the API boundary, you'll know exactly what that means. If you've not looked at that, if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But the way that you address flows and rules over the API now is more consistent, and it's more modern. It looks more like a natural REST endpoint than it used to. We used to require that you put a lot of query parameters in the URL to call a flow or call a rule. And so we've modernized that entire layer. We've added an open API and a Swagger integration. And we've started to open source some of our modules. There's a GitHub community now. If you want to build your own module, or if there's a module you're using in the product you'd like to extend, you'd like to change, a lot of our modules are being open sourced so that you have great example code to work with on the integration side. You also may have a need that's specific to your business, specific to the way that you do business. In one of our existing modules that you want to modify, you're welcome to do that. New form control approach. This is new in 7, and it's new late here in 7, is the idea that if you, who in here does form design? I'll skip it if no one does any form design. Got a couple form users? Okay, great. In 7, what we're doing is giving you the ability to think about the UI and the way the UI is laid out before you have to think about the action that the thing is supposed to do. And what I mean by that is right now in decisions, if you've built a form and you want a button that opens another web page somewhere, you have to pick the right button from the list. If you want a button that makes the form approve something, you have to pick the right button from the list. And going forward, we're changing that paradigm entirely. If you want a button, you put a button on your form. Now you have a button on the form. Now that the button's on the form, you pick what it does. Does it open a URL? Does it submit the form? Does it cause a visibility action to be invoked? And so it gives you the ability to think about the design first and then think about the action as a secondary activity. And hopefully it will really improve the feel of form design as we move forward into the future this year. Initiatives for 2021, the things we worked on. We adopted .NET 5.0. I talked about that. We have worked on improving stability. That is an ongoing initiative for us. We'll never stop trying to improve stability or improve performance. This year, improving performance is all about increasing the capability of the execution engine to run in the containerized world. We'll continue a React adoption on the front end, hopefully making the front end consistently and continuously more responsive. We've added some more native integrations, and we're working hard to start to analyze the way customers are using the product, to understand what features of the product are most in use and what features of the product need the most attention. We're doing this in 2 ways. We have some very light instrumentation built into the product in our hosted environments. If you're hosted by us, we can look at how you're using the flow engine and how you're using the rule engine. We can't see the details of your data, but we can see how you're using the pieces of the puzzle. We also have started a group, a product management, if I can, in air quotes. It's not true product management, but a product management group at Decisions led by a young man named Zach Butts. And Zach is interviewing PS team members. He's interviewing customers. He's interviewing people and trying to understand how use cases are supported technically. We love to talk about your use cases. We spend a lot of time doing it. I see Corey Anderson over here from Shift 4. He's a former teammate, and it's nice to see you, Corey. I've really missed you. I see Aaron Madsen. I think about your use cases all the time when we're sitting around and we're trying to make decisions, make choices about how the product should evolve. Zach's job is to formalize that, to make sure that we really understand what pieces of the product you guys are using to solve your problems and to run your business. Confidence. We started about 2 years ago being manic with regard to unit testing. The unit tests we run on the front end and on the back end, these are our base counts of unit tests run against one configuration. Every build of Decisions is run against 4 configurations, and we are constantly adding to this library. Last quarter 3, we added 1,300 front-end tests to the suite. That's 1,300 front-end tests that are run in 4 different configurations on every release of the product to lock in behavior, to lock in capability, and to protect you on an upgrade. So a 32% increase in unit tests from quarter 2 to quarter 3 with a 0.04% failure rate. Unit testing is a passion of ours and will continue to be a passion of ours for the next year. Looking ahead to Decisions 8, it will be the first fully containerized version of Decisions. It will run on Linux, which will decouple us from the requirement of a conventional Windows virtual machine. It will run on SQL Server or on Postgres equally. We will support you in upgrades. We don't know exactly what that will look like, except for database. We do not currently intend to support people switching from SQL Server to Postgres seamlessly. It will be a manual endeavor if you want to do it. So that's just a good note for you. And I think that's about it. Solutions development. Look, you guys, Bob introduced you to Sean. Sean talked to you about Pear and Tomato. I explained to you why Pear and Tomato matter to the product engineering team. I don't need to show you the screenshots and go back over it because you guys have already seen it. So I'm going to skip solutions engineering and just kind of get to the next transition so we can keep us moving. I hope that's okay. We wanted to bring up somebody who is a partner of Decisions, who understands automations, who understands the real needs of business, somebody who has been an excellent partner of ours in delivering value to you, our customers. But unfortunately, both Chris Mazur and Matt Scott weren't available to talk, so we opted for their CEO, Mark Savage. So Mark, if you just want to go ahead and come up, man, I'd love to have you speak to the team.